Hey everybody, welcome to BrickVault. Today is another LEGO Top 10 MOCs of the Week episode where I show you guys the coolest custom creations I happen to see people building in LEGO throughout this last week. Like always, I've left links in the description below, and like always, the links are to much more than just 10 custom creations because there's always some amazing designs coming from all over the world. I've only got time to talk about 10. I'm not going in order from best to worst, just 10 things I like built in LEGO. And if you have time, I've also left a link to our web store in the description below if you wanted to build some amazing custom LEGO creations for yourself. We sell the PDF step-by-step building guides for some very, very intricate and awesome designs of our own and from designers from all over the world. All right, let's jump right into the very first design from the builder Pistash. Comes the mask, and of course this build wins out on some nostalgia points for me right off the bat because I grew up with this movie. It was a lot of fun, and this scene is very difficult to forget. Remember, we're not actually looking at a cartoon character. This live action film had some really interesting, I think, computer animation and some weird alternate animation to bring this absolutely insane character to life, and there is the mask with his jaw dropping to the floor and his tongue rolling out. I think it's when he sees some really attractive woman. The eye-popping effect looks great in LEGO. The roll of the tongue drooping over the lip is just a fun little effect. And I think the snotting technique or studs not on top technique really works for the most part on this little design. It keeps everything nice and clean and somewhat cartoony. Jumping down to the next build, this is from Nick Sweetman, and the title is Anyone Can Play Air Guitar, and it's a wonderful little vignette that celebrates the appreciation of rock and roll. At least that's what I get from this. The color is amazing. I love the sort of rainbow or just multicolored stripes that goes along the walls and the carpet. It matches up well with the different album covers sticking out from the shelves. The rocker guy looks like he's having quite a lot of fun listening to whoever seems to be playing right now. And I've also noticed that those newish windows are up in the corners. Not necessary for this build, but I just like to see that new trans piece getting used. Just a fun vignette. This is definitely something that you could have on display next to your desk or something like that. And then this wins double points for me because A, it's a Mandalorian build. I really love the Mandalorian custom builds that are coming out, and B, it is actually an incredible bit of landscaping as well. From JS Ninja Nerd comes the build titled Protecting the Child, and I think this is episode 2. On the way back to his ship, the Mandalorian escorting the child is ambushed by a couple of other bounty hunters when he's in this very strange and covered desert scape. The build of the archway pieces coming up and over the top feel very, very complete. I love the idea of the side-built brick slope pieces between the arch and the top layer of plates on the desert. It makes the whole thing feel a lot thicker, stronger, and of course it smooths out the that weird, awkward place between the studs changing direction from 180 degrees. On top of that, the base of the build also has some side-built studs as well to make the whole thing just feel like it's really popping out of the ground. And the build for the floating Baby Yoda is pretty darn good. Not the first time I've seen that approach to a build for his head, and it probably won't be the last. It just looks pretty darn sweet. Of course, there's that new little piece coming out soonish. And then from the designer Ian Ying 616 comes the Tommy Ivo Twin Nailhead Dragster 3. Now, I can't say I'm much of a gearhead. I don't know a huge amount of the history of these types of cars or these types of dragsters, but I can appreciate a good build when I see it. And I also love that gearheads have managed to find this wonderful niche in the LEGO building world where they can create their perfect custom version of a dragster or a motorcycle or some type of souped up sports car. And within that universe, they can really flesh out all the fun details and customizations that they would have loved to have had, or maybe even recreating something that they had once in the past or still own. There are some awesome uses of chromed pieces here. Now here is something that is just simply fun. It's like I can really almost hear the donkey singing into the carrot when I look at this picture. From Gregory Coquelz, we have the Kings of Bremen, and it was actually built as part of a Mock Wars contest category, Grim Reality, and this is a Queen tribute quartet. Looks like they're singing the song Fried Chicken. That's just what I see from the description below. But what we have are some somewhat simple but really funny builds for animals, or anthropomorphic animals, I suppose. And they've each got their mastery on their own instrument, and it kind of looks like some of them are playing real instruments like the cat and the chicken, while the donkey just sings into the carrot. Maybe he's just loud enough on his own. And the dog looks like he's playing some kind of bass or guitar, but it is just a giant meat bone. It's just fun. It's animated. The style is simple yet not amateurish. It just looks like a really accessible and really fun to build creation. I've seen lots of different rock and roll and music scenes done in LEGO before, but I have not seen something done quite like this before. Now we're jumping on to a character build from the designer Djokson. It is called the 7 Shichiroji, and this is actually just one samurai of 7 different builds that came from 7 different designers. This one is just my personal favorite. If you go to Djokson's page in the description below, you'll see links to the rest of them if you want to check them out. But personally, I found his to be the coolest. Just has a bit more personality. He still has a somewhat monstrous or demon-like face, but feels a little bit weary or maybe even bored or tired. On top of that, the proportions are pretty fun. The build for the armor is pretty darn great, and I particularly like the inclusion of those little wooden sandals. And then this build has been making the rounds quite a bit in the last week. From Brick Ninja Expanded, we have the artillery truck, or this is an overview of the artillery truck. It kind of has a February feel to it a little bit, kind of like a rover, but certainly a bit more beefy, less cartoony, yet extremely striking with the color choice. I think that's what really grabbed a lot of people here. The olive green just contrasts so incredibly well with that nice bright orange. The inclusion of that one, I think, Star Wars character, at least the helmet feels like a Star Wars pilot helmet, certainly helps to ingrain the color combination quite well. And there's just something that feels so strong yet quirky when it comes to the overall feel that I get from this relatively militaristic based build. This latest design that really grabbed me comes from Marco de Bon. It's called LEGO FA14 Seraph, and don't ask me if this is directly from some type of TV show or manga or something. I'm not that familiar with any contemporary Gundam stuff, but what I can tell you is that this is a really cool looking robot. The stance for this character is quite strong, very menacing. The weapon builds look proportional and somewhat realistic, at least within this type of universe. The mostly white body is accented quite well with the gold and red, or maybe that's that kind of peachy orange color. It almost looks like that with the exposure that I see from these photos. The back jets look awesome with that relatively new shape that we have for the little gray piece here. I think that was originally BB-8's head or something quite close to that. And Marco de Bon is by no means a novice when it comes to LEGO robotic builds. He's got a great way of integrating them into micro-scaled cities. And then this next design comes from Ralph Savelsberg. It's called the Sukhoi S-37, or maybe it's the Su-47 Berkut. I don't know exactly if I'm saying that correctly, but this is an experimental fighter from, I think, the early 90s that was everybody's favorite Micro Machine toy when I was a kid. And though I don't know how much of a real-world military life that this design had, it's certainly the jet fighter plane that looks more close to a spaceship or a starfighter than anything else that I think has ever existed. Well, that could be maybe argued, I suppose. But what grabbed me in particular when taking a look at this ship is, once again, this almost always gets me, but it's that curved line that you can manage to achieve on the front of a wing. Almost every designer has a slightly different approach to it. There's probably 4 or 5, I would say maybe widely accepted techniques from the community, and very rarely do you see something that strays too far from one thing or another. But Ralph here seems to have managed to get a perfectly flush line between the slope bricks that he has built on the sides and the plate with the cheese wedge piece that lines that edge almost perfectly flush. There's hardly a space between them, and it goes a really long way when you look at this ship from afar. Often the jolty or pixelated look that you get from having flat plates with slopes on top of a curved wing is really what takes me away from many of the larger plane designs. And Ralph, I think, has very successfully managed to stay away from any distractions like that when you're looking at this particular ship. It looks to be perfect minifig scale, I'm not totally sure, but the sticker highlights and the details are subtle, yet add quite a lot of life to the overall look of this model. Now guess what? We're at the final build of the week. This is from Peter Ilmrud, and the title is News from the Landlord. This is such a fun build. It's got a lot of wonderful organic designs and techniques thrown in there, which is always fun to take a look at. But the roles have been somewhat reversed here. I kind of get a Shrek vibe because you can check out the rock people or the ogres or the golems. I'm not entirely sure what type of fantasy creature that we're looking at, but they seem to be the peaceful, you know, in touch with nature, farmer, nice villagers. And from what it looks like, it's perhaps an eviction notice from the landlord, the overlords, the humans, the bad guys that are, I think, giving them the initial boot or the first warning until the final violent eviction maybe comes in a week or two. The archers are up on the high ground looking down. The messenger is escorted by armored knights and lots of lush bushes and little critters and stuff to get lost in and take closer looks at as you hang out looking at the overall looking at this overall build. Guys, that is going to be it for the top 10 mocks of the week episode. Remember, there's a whole heck of a lot more than 10 creations linked in the description below. These videos are always a lot of fun to make. Let me know which ones were your favorite in the comments below, and feel free to leave comments on the actual Flickr pages of the builders that I have shown you guys in this episode. Thanks again for watching. If you enjoy our content, you can always like or subscribe, and we'll see you next time at BrickVault.